All right, in this video we're going to look at the green section of your review. So again, there's a little typo there. But let's look at how we would add these two fractions. And so when we add a fraction, remember we need to have a common denominator. So we need to first figure out what our factored form of each denominator is going to be. So we see that for this first fraction, I can factor out a 3. So we'd have 3 times x minus 1 in that denominator. So my LCM here would be, well, in the first fraction we have x minus 4 as a factor. In the second fraction we have x minus 1 times 3. I'm going to put this 3 up in front. So this would be our LCM. This is our goal, to have this in our denominator. So in that first fraction, what am I missing? I'm missing the 3 and I'm missing the x minus 1. So I'm going to multiply this first fraction times 3 and x minus 1. And the second fraction, I already have the x minus 1, so I'm missing the x minus 4. So we're going to multiply the top and bottom by x minus 4. Now in the next step, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to recognize that 6 times 3 is 18. So I'm going to take 18 and distribute that to the inside of the parentheses there. So we would have 18x minus 18. And then here I'm going to distribute the 6 through, so we would have 6x minus 24. And all of that would be over our LCM, which would be 3 times x minus 4 times x minus 1. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify that numerator. I'm going to see what like terms we have. So I see we have an 18x and a 6x. Those add together to be, that would be 24x. Which I just noticed that the teacher that made the answer key here, that provided it online, had the wrong answer of 24x. So if we haven't fixed that yet, that might be the reason why you had a question on this one. But 24x is what that would simplify to be. And then negative 18 minus 24, that's going to be negative 42. So we have 24x minus 42 in the numerator. And the denominator, we'd have 3 times x minus 4 times x minus 1. Now granted, 6 goes into both of these, so if you wanted to, we could simplify this just a little bit further than what was even shown in the answer key. So if you were to simplify this further, we could factor out a 6, and so then we'd have 4x minus 7 in the numerator over 3 times x minus 4 and x minus 1. And so this 3 would actually go into 6 2 times. So really what we should have had is 2 times 4x minus 7 over x minus 4 times x minus 1. So if we haven't already done that, we will have to fix that in the answer key. All right, let's look at number 2. Number 2, again, we're adding, or we're actually subtracting here. So I want to change this to be adding a negative 3, just so I don't forget to do that later on. All right, in the denominator, we're going to, well, that's the only thing that needs to be factored, because the numerator for that first fraction is going to stay x plus 1. The denominator I can factor out at 2, so we'll have, we'd have 3x plus 1 there. And then you'd have plus a negative 3 in the numerator over 4. So my LCM here would actually be, now, okay, we have the, let's type with this for a second. We have 3x plus 1 as one factor. Now, if you multiplied 2 times 4 and got 8, you could have done that. But between 2 and 4, like let's say, let's ignore the fact that we have a fraction here. Let's just pretend this wasn't here. And if we just had these two fractions with a 2 in the denominator and a 4 in the denominator, you would recognize that, well, in that first fraction, we would just have to multiply both the top and bottom by 2 to have a common denominator of 4. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at this as, as our least common multiple, because 2 and 4, the least common multiple there would just be 4, because 2 goes into 4 evenly, and 4 goes into 4 evenly. But if you did it as 8, that would still work. It's just that you're going to have to do a little bit more reducing, so I'm going to show you that this way is a little bit easier. So when you have just plain old numbers, again, just focus on those two numbers and say, what's the smallest number that both of those will divide into evenly? That would be 4. So we're going to have that as your LCM. All right, so let's look. On that first fraction, what are we missing? We're missing just a 2. So we're going to multiply the top and bottom there by 2. And the second fraction, we're missing the 3x plus 1. So now I'm going to write this as one giant fraction. So our denominator is going to be the LCM, which is 4 times 3x plus 1. Our numerator, I distribute the 2 through, so we get 2x plus 2. And then we'd have plus a negative, distribute the negative 3 through, so we get negative 9x minus 3. Now we're going to combine like terms in that numerator. So 2x minus 9x would be a negative 7x. Done with those. And 2 minus 3 would be negative 1. In our denominator, we would have 4 times 3x plus 1. There. So that would be your final answer for number 2. All right, let's look at number 3. So again, I see that I have a minus here. So I'm going to change this to adding a negative. Makes things a lot easier if you do it that way at the beginning. And actually, this one's kind of nice. There is no factoring that we need to do. So we can just start with what's our LCM? What's our least common multiple going to be? So the first fraction, I see I have a 5 in the denominator. The second one is x plus 5. So that's easy. Then we're just going to use 5 times x plus 5. So in that first fraction, I'm missing an x plus 5. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by x plus 5. The second fraction, I'm missing a 5. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by just a 5. So let's see what we get. So again, I'm going to write this as one giant fraction with my LCM of 5 times x plus 5 is going to be my denominator. The numerator, I'm going to distribute the 3 through. So we would have 3x plus 15. And then negative 5x times 5 is just negative 25x. So now we're just going to combine like terms. So 3x and the negative 25x, that's going to be negative 22x. And then we have plus 15. Our denominator is just going to be the 5 times x plus 5. And that can't be simplified at all, so that would be your final answer. All right, let's look at the back side of the green review. All right, so this first one, again, we're doing more with adding and subtracting fractions. So we're going to simplify this denominator. We're going to look for greatest common factor there. So this was going to simplify to be 2 times x plus 4 plus 6x over 2. So my LCM here is going to be 2 times x plus 4. We get that from the first denominator. The second denominator, I already have my 2, and so we don't have to list anything else. This is going to be your LCM. So the first fraction, there's nothing to do. We don't have to do anything with that. With the second fraction, we're going to multiply the top and bottom by x plus 4. So when we do that, I'm going to write this as one giant fraction. So in our denominator, we'll have 2 times x plus 4. Then we're going to have that x plus 2, which we didn't have to do anything with. Second fraction, I'm going to distribute the 6x through. So we'll have 6x squared plus 24x. And now we're going to combine like terms. So let's put this in standard form. The denominator we're not going to do anything with, but we'll start with the 6x squared. And then we'd have a 24x and an x. That'd be 25x plus 2. And so that would be your answer for number 4. All right, let's look at number 5. So with number 5, again, when we see that we have subtraction, I'm going to change this to adding a negative. It'll just take out a step. It'll make things a little bit easier in the long run, avoiding some common mistakes. And there's nothing to factor here, so I'm just going to start right in with finding the least common multiple is going to be x plus 2 times x plus 1. So that first fraction is missing the x plus 1 in the denominator. The second fraction is missing the x plus 2 in the denominator. So then when we go to simplify this or multiply this together, my denominator is going to be x plus 2 times x plus 1. My numerator, I'm going to distribute the 2 through to get 2x plus 2 there. Distribute the negative 3x through, and we get negative 3x squared minus 6x. All right, next step, I'm going to look to see what we have in the numerator as far as combining like terms. So I'm going to start with a negative 3x squared. And then we have a negative 6x and a 2x, so that's going to be minus 4x plus 2 in our numerator. The denominator is going to be x plus 2 times x plus 1. And there you go. That's how you do that second one on the, the second one on the back page. Now let's look at this other section, which for me is number 6. For some of you guys, it might be numbered as 1 and 2 here. But let's start with the numerator. So what we're going to do is we're going to treat this as two separate pieces, and we're going to simplify what we can from each numerator and denominator before we divide. So in that numerator, I want to simplify that, so I'm just going to focus on the fact that, okay, we're going to need a common denominator of x. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by x. So in my numerator, I would have 2 plus 6x over x after we combine and simplify those. And then I would have divided by 1, let me use a different color here, divided by 1 minus y, or 1 divided by y. Okay, but we can't divide by a fraction, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the reciprocal of this denominator. So we're going to change this to be 2 plus 6x over x. We're going to leave that alone, but we're going to change this other piece to be times y over 1. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute that y through. Okay, so to multiply, we're going to distribute the y through, so we would end up with 2y plus 6xy all over 1 times x, which is just x. So that's how you do number 6. All right, looking at number 7. So for this one, again, we're going to treat this as two separate pieces. All right, I don't have to do anything in the numerator. 5 over x plus 3, that's already written as a single fraction, so I'm good with leaving it that way. So let's look at the denominator. The denominator, I want to have my LCM being x plus 3. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by x plus 3. So when we do that, we would end up having, and if I distribute the 2 through, we would end up having 2x plus 6 plus 1 over x plus 3, because we would have a common denominator now of x plus 3. And if I'm going to do two things all at once here to make things a little bit easier, so I'm just going to rewrite this as 5 over x plus 3. But we're going to change this to be multiplying by the reciprocal of the denominator. So the x plus 3 is going to go in the numerator. In the denominator, we'd have the 2x, and I'm going to combine like terms with the 6 plus 1 is 7. And now I recognize that the x plus 3's would cancel out, leaving me with just 5 over 2x plus 7. So that's how I do the last one. So that is the end of the green section of your review.